Central Pennsylvania, 2:47 in the morning. 1,000 acres of frost-silvered farmland stretch beneath a bruised March sky. The wind moves through the hemlock ridge like something alive. Down in the valley, one small red and white farmhouse. A single porch light burning. Behind the house, a gravel yard. 54 twisted steel arches piled in the wet grass. Bent tubing. Broken doors. A pile bigger than her barn. A young woman stands alone in the middle of it. 22 years old. Red plaid flannel. Her father's canvas jacket. Boots too big by half a size. Her breath comes out in slow white columns. She is counting. Her fingers close around a blue leather notebook stained dark at the corner. Coffee, or rain, or something older than either. Somewhere on the ridge, a coyote calls once. She does not look up. 2:47 in the morning. March, Central Pennsylvania. A young woman stands alone in a gravel yard, 22 years old. Red plaid flannel under a canvas jacket that used to belong to her father. Boots too big by half a size. Her breath comes out in slow white columns. She is counting. Bent steel arches, rusted joints, broken doors leaning against a fence post, galvanized tubing coiled in the wet grass like sleeping snakes. 1, 2, 3. Her lips move without sound. 27, 28. 54 greenhouse frames, all twisted, all rejected, all hauled here by a man who thought she was crazy. She is crazy. She knows she is crazy, but she keeps counting, because if she stops counting, she starts thinking. And if she starts thinking, she remembers. She remembers her mother's handwriting, remembers the smell of the notebook when she opened it the first time, remembers her brother's small voice in the dark last night saying, "We ate the last of the potatoes for dinner." 53, 54. Somewhere on the ridge behind her, a coyote calls once. She doesn't look up. Cut. A tomato seedling, green, perfect. Then a frost coats it in silver by morning light. The stem bends, the leaves blacken, the stem folds. Dead. Cut. A man in a wool overcoat, late 50s, standing at the edge of her gravel driveway, pointing, shaking his head, his mouth forming words she can't hear from the porch. Cut. 12 greenhouses, standing in rows, sunlight through plastic, green inside, a little girl running between them with a tray of seedlings, a woman on a porch drinking coffee, a man with a hat in his hands, someone signing a paper. Cut. Back to the young woman in the gravel yard, counting. She stops at 54. She writes it down in a blue leather notebook. The corner of the notebook is stained dark. Coffee, or rain, or something older than either. She closes the notebook. She whispers something, not in English. Andre Song, second season. Why is she here at 3 in the morning? Why 54 bent steel frames? And why 1 year from tonight will the man who tried to shut her down be standing on her porch with a covered dish and his 15-year-old daughter? To understand any of this, we have to go back. Back to a boy who left Norway in 1958 with a notebook in his pocket. Back to a small red and white house in Hemlock Hollow. Back to the morning a young woman named Petra Bjornstad found herself standing in the ruins of everything she thought she could save. The morning of April 4th, Petra kneels in the row of tomato starts she planted 6 days ago. The frost came in the night the weatherman promised would stay above 40. The weatherman was wrong. She touches a stem. It bends. It stays bent. She touches another. Same. She keeps going, row after row. 72 seedlings, all finished. She doesn't cry. Crying costs energy she doesn't have. She just kneels there. The sky above her is bright now, cloudless, beautiful, cruel. From the house a screen door creaks. Micah, 10 years old, still in his pajamas, a wool cap pulled down over his ears. He walks across the yard slowly, like he already knows. He stops beside her. He doesn't say anything. She reaches up, takes his hand. His fingers are cold. "Mrs. Ludwig's are okay," he says. "How do you know?" "I looked." "When?" "Before I came out." She closes her eyes. She had them covered. Yeah. With what? Sheets. Old sheets. Petra stands up. Her knees pop. That would have cost me nothing, she says. Micah looks at her. He is trying not to say anything wrong. I didn't know, he says. I know you didn't. Are we going to lose the farm? The question hangs between them like frost. She doesn't answer, because she doesn't know the answer, which is worse than knowing. She walks him back to the house. She puts water on for oatmeal. She sits at the kitchen table with the bills stacked on the far corner where she doesn't have to look at them. She has memorized the numbers already. 2,700 to the bank, 360 to the propane company, 180 on the tractor payment, 600 and change for the seed order she can't afford to skip, $400 in a coffee can under the sink, and a spool of scrap copper wire in the shed. Copper is 32 cents a pound this month, down from 50 last year. But it is what she has. She loads the wire into the pickup after breakfast. She drops Micah at Ingrid Solberg's house across the ridge because Micah likes Ingrid's cats, and because Petra doesn't want him with her today. She doesn't want him seeing whatever face she makes at the scrapyard. She drives 40 minutes to Punxsutawney. The scrapyard sits behind a chain-link fence at the end of a two-lane county road. Piles of steel to the sky. A sign that reads, Fairbanks Metal and Salvage weigh tickets daily. A pit bull chained to a barrel. A calico cat asleep on the hood of a wrecked Buick. Petra pulls up to the scale. A man comes out of the office. Late 60s, wide shoulders, gray beard, coffee in one hand. Morning. Morning. That copper. Yes. How much you got? 62 pounds. Nods, walks to the truck, runs his hand along the coil, looks up. You Anders Bjornstad's girl. I was. I heard about your daddy. I'm sorry. She doesn't answer. There is no good answer to that sentence. He weighs the copper. $19.84. He hands her a 20, tells her to keep the change. She tries to give it back. He shakes his head. Been a hard week for a lot of folks, he says. She folds the 20, puts it in her pocket. She should go. But she doesn't go, because past the office, past the piles of copper and aluminum, she sees a mountain of steel that stops her breath. Greenhouse frames, bent, rusted, doors hanging off, tubing coiled in twisted heaps, whole arches stacked 12 high, a pile bigger than her barn. She stares. That's greenhouse steel, she says. That's what it is. Where's it going? Melter and Erie. When? Truck comes Thursday. She swallows. How much for one load? He turns, looks at her, squints. One load. Yes. Of the bent stuff. Yes. He rubs his beard. He looks at her a long moment. He looks at the pile. He looks back at her. I'd give it to you, he says. I'd give the whole pile to you if I could get it off the lot. But that's 40 grand of tubing when it's straight. It's worth almost nothing when it's bent. You don't want it. I do. What are you going to do with bent greenhouse tubing? She looks at the pile. She thinks about her grandfather's notebook. She thinks about her mother's handwriting she found last week at the bottom of a trunk. She looks back at the man. I'm going to bend it back. He laughs. It's not a mean laugh. It's a tired laugh. The kind men give when they have seen too many people try to do things that don't work. I'll bring you a load Thursday, he says. No charge. You clear a spot for it. How much would it cost me for all of it? He blinks. All of it? Yes. Ma'am. Every load, every Thursday, for as long as you're hauling them out. He is quiet a long time. He looks at the office door like he's hoping someone will come out and stop this conversation. Then he says, You are serious. I am. You know this stuff is bent, right? Bent isn't broken. His mouth opens, then closes. Then he says quietly, What's your name? Petra Bjornstad. Duncan Fairbanks. I know. I'll bring what I have. Thank you. She turns to walk away. He says, Petra. She turns back. You clear that spot big. I got a lot of steel. She drives home slower than she came. The pickup rattles. She grips the wheel with both hands. Her mind is running. She has just agreed to accept trailer after trailer of scrap steel with no plan, no money, no blueprint, nothing. Except, except she does have something. She has half of an idea. She has a memory. She has her grandfather's trunk. She hasn't opened it in 11 years. The trunk is in the attic. Cedar, Norwegian brass hinges, a leather strap around it that has cracked with age. On the top, burned into the wood, her grandfather's initials, E.B. Eric Bjornstad, born 1930, Bergen, Norway. Sailed to Philadelphia in 1958 with 2 suitcases and a wife who died 3 years later of pneumonia. Came to Clearfield County because someone offered him work fixing farm equipment. Stayed 62 years. Died the summer Petra turned 6. She barely remembers him. She remembers his hands. His hands were huge. She remembers he smelled like pine resin and diesel. She remembers he called her Lil Tomat, little tomato. She climbs the pull-down ladder into the attic. Dust falls into the light. The air smells of cedar and old paper. She finds the trunk in the corner. Cobwebs. A dead moth on the lid. She unbuckles the leather strap. The lid creaks open. Inside, a stack of papers tied with twine. A pair of leather work gloves cracked. A photograph of a young couple standing in front of a small stone house with a slate roof. A brass thermometer engraved with a word she can't read. And at the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, a notebook, blue leather, corner stained dark. His initials burned into the front. She lifts it out. Her hands shake a little. She sits on the attic floor and opens it. The first page, Norwegian, sketches, measurements, a drawing of a greenhouse frame with numbered joints. Below it, in her grandfather's careful hand, Andre Seasong. Second season. For the winter that comes too soon. She turns the page. More sketches, ventilation flaps, angles, numbers, a drawing of a black barrel next to a wall with arrows showing heat radiating outward. She turns, turns, turns. 200 pages, 60 years of notes, every failure, every trial, every measurement of frost dates and soil temperatures and sun angles. And at the back, 12 pages in her mother's handwriting. Astrid, her mother. Her mother had written in this notebook. Astrid had been dead 4 years. She had died in June when Petra was 18 of the heart condition her mother's mother had also died of. Astrid had known she had 6 months. She had not told Petra until the last 2 weeks. She had spent those months at the kitchen table when Petra was at school writing. Writing what? Writing this. At the top of the first page in her mother's hand, 3 words. For Petra, when she's ready. Petra reads the sentence 3 times, then closes the notebook, then opens it again, then closes it. She sits on the attic floor for a long time, her hand on the cover, her breath even, the dust drifting sideways through the light from the small round window. She does not cry, because there is no time to cry, because Thursday is 3 days away, and Duncan Fairbanks is bringing a trailer of scrap steel, and her mother has left her instructions she has not read for 4 years. She stands up. She carries the notebook down the ladder. She lays it on the kitchen table. Micah looks up from his homework. What's that? Grandma left something for me. Grandma Astrid. Yes. What did she leave? Petra looks at him. I don't know yet. The next morning, she drives to the feed store to pick up a tarp and a box of 10-inch lag bolts. She has $42 in her pocket. The tarp is $19. The bolts are $11. She will have $12 left when she walks out. The feed store is one long building with a wood floor that creaks under boots. Coffee pot in the corner. Bulletin board covered with cards for lost dogs and hay for sale. Men in caps standing around the counter drinking free coffee and talking about the frost. Wilder Hensley is at the coffee pot. Wilder is 63, vegetable farmer down the road. 300 acres, has known Petra since she was born. Was at her mother's funeral, was at her father's funeral, has not once come by the house to check on her since. He sees her come in, he raises his cup. Petra. Wilder. Rough morning. Yeah. You lose your starts. All of them. Thought so. He smiles a little. She doesn't smile back. I was going to say, I saw a flatbed rolling up your driveway yesterday afternoon. That's right. Loaded with scrap. Yes. Greenhouse scrap. Yes. The men at the counter have gone quiet. They are listening. Wilder takes a sip of coffee. You know that stuff's bent. I know. You know it's bent because it doesn't work. I know it's bent. Well, what are you fixing to do with it? She looks at him. Fix it. He laughs. Not mean, just easy. Like this is a joke that has already told itself. Petra, honey, you're 22 years old. You're running that place by yourself. You got Micah to raise. You got the bank breathing on you. You don't have time to fix bent steel. I do. You're building a spaceship out there, girl. The men laugh. Petra doesn't laugh. She pays for her tarp and her bolts. She walks toward the door. Behind her, she hears Wilder say to the men low and easy, Scrap Greenhouse Farm. That's what it is. The name settles like a stone. Scrap Greenhouse Farm. She walks out. She stands on the sidewalk under the feed store awning. She stares across the parking lot. A silver crew cab pickup slows on the road in front of the store. The window is down. The driver is a man in a wool overcoat. Late 50s, gray hair combed straight back. Barrett Doyle. She has seen him at church twice. He owns Doyle Commercial Greenhouse on the west side of the county. 200 employees. Contract with a supermarket chain. Eyes looking at her. He raises one gloved hand from the steering wheel. Not a wave. A slower gesture. A small nod. Like he is filing something. He pulls back onto the county road. Petra stands there another moment. Then she gets in the truck and drives home. She sits in the driver's seat when she parks in the yard. She doesn't turn off the engine right away, because if she turns off the engine, she has to move. And if she moves, she has to keep moving. She sits. She breathes. She thinks about her mother's handwriting. She thinks about Micah eating the last of the potatoes. She thinks about her grandfather's hand, huge and warm around hers when she was 5 years old. She turns off the engine. She goes inside. Wednesday afternoon. A Volvo station wagon comes up the gravel drive. It is at least 20 years old. It is spotless. Ingrid Solberg, 67 years old, retired 40-year agricultural extension educator, widow, lives 2 farms over. Petra has waved at her from the road 100 times, has never spoken to her at length. Ingrid gets out of the car with a linen-covered plate. She walks up to the porch. Petra opens the door. I brought bread. Oh, rye made this morning. Thank you. They stand looking at each other. Ingrid is thin, gray hair in a long braid over one shoulder. Blue eyes. She has the kind of stillness that comes from having spent a lifetime waiting for slow things to happen. May I come in? Not a question. Petra opens the door. Ingrid sits at the kitchen table. Petra makes coffee. Micah comes in from feeding the chickens and stops when he sees the stranger. Hello. Hi. I'm Ingrid. Micah. How old are you, Micah? 10. That's a good age. Micah nods, not sure what to do with this. He looks at Petra. Go finish your homework. He goes. Ingrid pours a little cream into her coffee. She looks at the kitchen table. She stops. The notebook is there. Petra had left it there this morning. Ingrid stares at it. She reaches out. Her hand hovers above it. She does not touch it. May I? Petra nods. Ingrid opens the notebook, turns the pages. Slow, then slower. She stops on a page halfway through. Her finger traces a Norwegian word. Her lips move. She closes the notebook. She sits back. She is quiet a long time. Where did you get this? It was my grandfather's. Eric. Yes. You are Eric's granddaughter. Yes. Ingrid closes her eyes, just for a moment, then opens them. I knew your grandfather. Petra sets down her coffee cup. When? From 1974 until he died. How? Extension work. He came to conferences. He was the only Norwegian in Clearfield County. He drank his coffee black. He never spoke much, but when he did, everyone listened. He never mentioned you. He wouldn't have. Why? Ingrid smiles a small, sad smile. Because Eric didn't mention people. He mentioned ideas. Petra doesn't know what to do with this information. She looks at her hands. Ingrid. Yes? Why did you come today? Because I saw the flatbed yesterday morning. So you know. I know what you're doing. You know what I'm doing. I have a good idea. Then tell me what I'm doing. Ingrid looks at her a long time. Then she says, you're finishing something that has been waiting for someone to finish for a very long time. The kitchen is quiet. The kettle ticks on the stove. I don't know if I can. I don't know either. But you'll help me. I will help you. Why? Because your grandfather asked me to, a long time ago. He's been dead 16 years. He asked me before that. Asked you what? Ingrid folds her hands. He asked me if a child of his family ever picked up this notebook, if a child ever opened it and started asking questions. He asked me to be there, and he asked me to hold something for that child until she came looking. She. That is what he wrote. He knew it would be a she. He hoped. That's a strange thing to hope for. He was a strange man. Petra looks at the notebook. She looks at Ingrid. When can you come back? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. 6. Yes. Why 6? Because that is when I take soil temperatures. Your grandfather taught me. If you are going to do this, we take temperatures at 6. Petra nods. Ingrid stands up. She smooths her jacket. She looks at Petra. He will be very pleased, Ingrid says. Who? Eric. He's been dead 16 years. He will still be pleased. Ingrid leaves. Petra stands at the window and watches the Volvo go back down the drive. Thursday morning, the flatbed rolls up the gravel driveway at 9:47. Duncan Fairbanks in the cab, chewing a toothpick. He gets out, looks at the yard. Petra has cleared a space 50 by 70 feet behind the barn, marked the corners with stakes and orange twine, swept it flat with a push broom she borrowed from Ingrid. You weren't kidding. I don't kid. I see that. Ha unhooks the straps. Petra watches. He operates a small hydraulic tilt. The steel slides off the truck bed with a groan and a crash that shakes the ground under her boots. 20 arches, bent, 12 pieces of tubing, coiled and rusted, 4 broken doors, a pile of joint brackets. It looks like a war ended here. When's the next one? Next Thursday. Bigger. Whatever I got. Bigger would be better. He looks at her, squints. Petra Bjornstad. Yes, you are the strangest customer I have ever had. Yes. He gets back in the truck. He pulls back onto the county road. Petra stands looking at the pile of steel. She opens the notebook. She opens it to the page her mother wrote first. She reads. Then she starts measuring. The first frame goes up over 3 days. She measures, cuts, bends what she can bend by hand, reinforces what she can't, sinks the base plates in concrete she mixes herself from a bag she bought on credit from the lumberyard. Bolts, braces. Tubing joined at angles Ingrid comes over to inspect at dusk. Not that joint. Why? Because the wind here comes from the northwest. That joint faces southeast. It will flex the wrong way. So I move it. So you move it. Petra moves it. She works past dark. She works with a headlamp. She sleeps 4 hours a night. Micah brings her sandwiches and stays to watch her work. He does not talk while she works. He watches. He notices things. He notices which tools she reaches for. He notices which joints take her longest. By Sunday afternoon, the first frame stands. 22 feet long, 9 feet at the peak. A curved arch of scrap steel that was bent by a Missouri windstorm 5 years ago and thrown out by a wholesale grower in Ohio. Reinforced, braced, painted with rust-proof primer she got half price because the can was dented. It stands. She circles it. She touches every joint. Her hands are cut in a dozen places. Her fingernails are black with grease. Her hair is falling out of the ponytail she tied it in on Friday. She sits down in the grass and looks at what she has built. Micah comes out with a mug of coffee. He sits beside her. Petra. Yeah. Is it going to stand? I don't know. It looks like it will. It looks like it will. They sit. The sun goes down behind the Hemlock Ridge. The storm comes Monday night. The forecast said light rain. The forecast was wrong. The wind hits the ridge at 11 p.m. Petra is asleep. She wakes to the sound of the shutters banging. She lies in bed, listens. She hears the wind change direction. She sits up. She pulls on boots and the canvas jacket and grabs the headlamp. She runs out into the yard. The frame is bending, the northwest corner, the joint she moved on Ingrid's advice. It's holding. But the southeast corner, the joint she thought would be fine, it's flexing, flexing, flexing. Then it buckles. The whole frame folds sideways, slow, groaning, like a slow-motion collapse in a dream. It falls into the wet grass. Petra stands with the rain running down her face. She watches the frame lie there. Her first thought is, I should have listened to her about both joints. Her second thought is, I don't have money for more steel. Her third thought is, I have 3 more Thursdays before the bank calls. Her fourth thought is, my mother would have known which joint would go. She stands in the rain. She goes back inside. She goes to the kitchen table. She opens the notebook to the page in her mother's handwriting, where Astrid had drawn a joint diagram with a note beside it. Reinforced joints on all 4 corners, not just windward. Petra reads it. Then she reads it again. Then she puts the notebook down. Then she goes back to bed and does not sleep. The next Thursday, Duncan brings the trailer. Bigger this time, twice the load. He steps out of the cab, looks at the collapsed frame in the yard. Frame fall. Yes. Which joint? Southeast. Windward. Northwest. He nods slow. The southeast one's the tricky one. I know that now. Grandfather used to say. Petra freezes. Grandfather? Yeah, my granddad. He was a farm equipment guy, worked out of Ridgeway. What was his name? Duncan looks up, squints. Ellison Fairbanks. Petra's throat goes tight. Say it again. Ellison Fairbanks. Died in '92. Why? She goes to the truck. She reaches into the cab. She pulls the notebook off the seat where she left it. She opens it to a page maybe 70 pages in. She turns the notebook around. She shows him. Duncan looks. At the top of the page in her grandfather's handwriting in ink. Norway Farm Equipment Club meeting minutes, February 1967. In attendance, Eric Bjornstad, Ellison Fairbanks, 3 others. Discussion joint reinforcement for cold frame construction, 4-corner method, presented by E. Fairbanks. Endorsed by E.B. as sound. Below. A sketch. 2 handwritings side by side. One draws a joint. The other draws a reinforcement bracket over it. Duncan reads it again. He sits down on the running board of the truck. He takes off his cap. He turns it over in his hands. He is quiet a long time. Miss Bjornstad. Yes. My grandfather and your grandfather designed this joint together. Yes. 59 years ago. Yes. And I have been throwing away steel that was built on this joint. For 20 years, I have been hauling it to the melter. Yes. Duncan puts his cap back on. He walks back to the truck. He gets in. He does not drive away. He sits in the cab looking at the pile of steel he just delivered. Then he leans out the window. Petra. Yes. How much of it do you want? All of it. All. Every load until you don't have any more. He nods. He starts the engine. Before he pulls away, he says, I'll separate them by diameter next time. It'll save you a day of sorting. That night, late, Ingrid comes to the kitchen door. She has a shoebox in her hand. She sets it on the table. Petra looks at it. What is this? Letters. From who? From your grandfather, to me, over 36 years. Petra opens the box. Envelopes, neat stacks, some yellow with age, some newer. The bottom letters are typed. The top ones are handwritten in the shaky hand of a man who was running out of time. Ingrid pulls one out, the one on top. This one. Read this one first. Petra takes the letter. She reads it. Dated April 3rd, 2009, 1 year before Eric died. Dear Ingrid, I am writing to ask you something I have not asked before. I know I am running out of time. I have not finished the notebook. I do not have the strength anymore to teach it. I do not have anyone to give it to. My daughter Astrid is a good farmer, but she does not have the temperament for this project. She needs to work land, not build systems. My granddaughter Petra is 5 years old, and I will not know what she becomes. But if she ever finds this notebook, if she ever opens it, if she ever asks, I need you to be there. I need you to answer her questions. I need you to tell her something for me. Tell her Bent isn't broken. It's just waiting to be something else. Tell her mother knew. Her mother read every page. Her mother wrote in the back. Tell her I registered a foundation in 1985. It is called Second Season Foundation. The papers are in a safety deposit box at the Clearfield First National Bank Box 214. She has authority as of her 21st birthday. It is up to her whether she uses it. Tell her these three things, or none of them if she doesn't ask. I trust you. Eric. Petra reads the letter. She reads it twice. She sets it down on the table. Her hands are trembling. You've had this. I have. For 17 years. For 17 years. Why didn't you bring it before? Because he told me not to. He told you not to. He told me only when you were ready. How did you know I was ready? When Duncan drove up your driveway with a trailer of scrap steel. Petra puts her head in her hands. Ingrid. Yes. What is Second Season Foundation? I do not know exactly. I know it exists. I know it is registered. That is all he told me. Where is the safety deposit box? Clearfield First National, Box 214. Do I have the authority? You have been 21 for over a year. Petra looks up. So I could have gone any time. You could have. I didn't know it existed. You didn't. He waited. He waited. 16 years after he died. He is still waiting. Ingrid does not answer. She puts her hand on top of Petra's hand. She says nothing. The kitchen is quiet. Outside, the wind pushes against the shutter. Micah appears in the doorway in his pajamas. Petra. Yeah. I heard the door. Ingrid's here. I know. He looks at the letter on the table. He looks at his sister. He says, are we okay? She looks at him. She thinks about her grandfather. She thinks about her mother. She thinks about the frame that collapsed in the storm. She thinks about the second frame she has already sketched with four corner joints and a Fairbanks Bjornstad bracket. She looks at Micah. We are going to be okay. He nods. He goes back to bed. Petra stays at the table with Ingrid. They read every letter in the box. The sun comes up while they are reading. By the following Sunday, the second frame stands. 24 feet long, 10 at the peak. Four corner joints. Fairbanks brackets. Petra welded herself from scraps of the collapsed first frame. Braces along both ridge lines. The wind comes Monday. The frame holds. By Wednesday, she has stretched 2 layers of polyethylene film over the arches, sealed the edges, cut 2 ventilation flaps at the gable ends, and hinged them so they open and close by cord. Wednesday night, the temperature drops to 29 degrees. Petra sets 30 tomato starts inside the frame. She waters them at 4 in the afternoon so the water in the soil has time to warm from the day. Then she waits. At midnight, she goes out with the headlamp. Inside the frame, 42 degrees. Outside the frame, 29. She stands in the doorway of her homemade greenhouse and puts her hand on the soil. Warm. She touches a tomato leaf. Green. Alive. She turns off the headlamp. Above her, the stars are out, sharp and cold and unbelievable. She walks back to the house. Micah is asleep on the couch. He waited up. He couldn't stay awake. She sits down beside him. She opens the blue notebook. She writes in her own hand for the first time. March 27th, 2026. Second frame stands. 30 tomato starts holding at 42 degrees when outside is 29. Reinforced 4 corner joints per grandfather and E. Fairbanks. Mother's ventilation angle correct. Waiting for Duncan's Thursday load. She pauses. She writes one more line. Bent isn't broken. It's just waiting to be something else. She closes the notebook. She sits with her brother on the couch. She puts her hand on his hair. He is warm. Outside the window, the frame stands in the moonlight. Beyond it, in the shadow of the barn, the pile of scrap steel Duncan brought Thursday is waiting. The next Thursday is 3 days away. And somewhere on the west side of the county, in a silver crew cab pickup, parked outside a large commercial greenhouse operation with 200 employees and a supermarket contract, a man in a wool overcoat named Barrett Doyle sits with his hands on the steering wheel and watches the sun come up over the ridge. He does not know what she is building, but he has heard the name at the feed store, Scrap Greenhouse Farm. He has driven past her gravel driveway 3 times this week. Hy is watching. He has not decided what he wants to do about it yet, but he will. By the 3rd week of April, Petra has 2 working greenhouses in the yard behind the barn. The first stands 18 feet from the collapsed shell of her original frame. She left that first frame lying where it fell. Not from laziness, from memory. She wants to see the failure every morning when she walks out with her coffee. The second frame stands beside it, reinforced, braced, covered in double poly, vented at the gables, rimmed at the base with 6 black 55-gallon drums she painted herself and filled with water. Thermal mass, her grandfather's word. The tomato starts are 8 inches tall now, deep green, setting first blossoms, 3 weeks ahead of anyone in the county. She writes it in the notebook at 6 a.m. every morning. Soil temperature at 4 inches, 62 degrees. Ambient temp, inside frame 69. Outside 41. Blossoms on 12 of 30 plants. She closes the notebook. She drinks her coffee. She looks at the second frame and lets the sight of it steady her hands, because her hands are shaking, not from cold, from what came in the mail yesterday. The letter is on the kitchen table. She has not opened it since she read it the first time. Clearfield County Department of Planning and Code Enforcement. Notice of inspection, 7 citations for zoning noncompliance. Structural inspection required. Compliance meeting scheduled for May 3rd. Signed by Barrett Doyle County Zoning Advisory Board Vice Chair. She had not known he was on the board. She had not known there was a board. She reads the letter one more time. She folds it. She puts it in the drawer under the notebook. She goes back outside. Ingrid comes at 8. She has a rye loaf in one hand and a girl in the other. The girl is 12, thin as fence wire, brown hair to her shoulders, wearing a coat that is 2 sizes too big and gloves that don't match. Petra, this is Bexley. Hi. Bexley does not answer. She looks at the second greenhouse. She walks toward it without asking. Ingrid watches her go. She's been sleeping on my porch for 2 nights. I only found out yesterday morning. Her grandfather, he didn't know she left. Her grandfather? Ingrid does not answer directly. She wants to work. She won't take charity. She wanted to know if you needed help. I can't pay anyone. She won't take pay. She'll trade for lunch. Petra watches Bexley walk the length of the greenhouse. The girl runs her fingers along the outside of the plastic. Slow, careful, like she is reading it. Petra says, what is she going to trade for lunch? Whatever you need done. Bexley turns around at the far end of the greenhouse. She walks back. She stops in front of Petra. She says, you need better ventilation on the west end. Petra blinks. How do you know? Because when the sun hits it in the afternoon, it's going to cook everything on that side. You need a second flap. Petra looks at Ingrid. Ingrid looks back at her with the smallest possible smile. Petra kneels down so her eyes are level with the girl. How old are you? 12. Where did you learn about ventilation? Bexley shrugs. I read. You read what? I read whatever. Okay. Petra stands up. Ingrid, can she stay through the day? She can stay through the day. Bexley. Yeah. You want to help build the next one? The girl does not smile, but her shoulders go down half an inch. She nods. The next frame is the practice one. Petra needs it to work because she is going to start building for other people. She is going to build one for Rosalind Faust, the widow whose greenhouse blew away in a tornado 2 years ago. The one who has kept every seed packet in a shoebox on her kitchen counter, waiting for someone to build her a new one. Rosalind had come by on Tuesday with a check for $400. I know it's not what a greenhouse costs. It isn't. I know. Then why? Because I heard about your frame, and I have been keeping these seeds for 2 years, and I am 71 years old, Petra. I don't have 2 more years. Petra had taken the check. She had put it in the coffee can under the sink. She had said, I will start Monday. Now Petra sketches. Bexley watches. Petra draws the arch, the joint, the gable, the base plates. She marks angles. Bexley points at the drawing. Why is that joint different from the other one? Because it faces the wind. Which wind? Northwest. How do you know? My grandfather wrote it down. Where? Petra opens the notebook. She turns to a page. She points. Bexley reads. Bexley is a good reader. Bexley is a better reader than Petra was at 12. Your grandfather wrote in Norwegian. Some of it. Can you read Norwegian? Not really. Then how do you know what it says? Ingrid tells me. My mother wrote the English on the other side. Bexley turns the page. She reads Astrid's handwriting. Your mother had nice writing. She did. Bexley touches the page with one finger. Then she pulls her hand back like she is worried she has touched something she shouldn't. She says sorry. For what? For touching your mom's writing. Petra is quiet a moment. Then she says, you can touch it. She would have liked you. Bexley does not answer. She looks down at the sketch. She reaches for the pencil. Can I add something? What? A second flap on the west end, right here. If you angle it up, you get airflow at the ridge without losing heat at the base. Petra looks at where the girl is pointing. She thinks about it. Show me. Bexley draws. The line is clean. The angle is right. The concept is correct. Petra looks at her. Where did you say you read this? I said whatever. Whatever isn't a book. There's a library in Belfonte. You go to the library in Belfonte. Sometimes. How do you get to Belfonte? Bexley does not answer. Petra does not press. She looks at the sketch on the page. She says, we're going to try your flap. Bexley nods. She does not smile, but she reaches for the pencil to sharpen it. The third frame goes up the last week of April. Rosalind Faust comes by the second day, brings coffee in a thermos and a coffee cake wrapped in a dish towel. You're really doing it. I'm trying to. How much do I owe you? 400 like you gave me. That can't be the real cost. It is for you. Petra. Rosalind. I have money. I know you do. Then let me pay you what it costs. 400 is what it costs. Because I got the steel free. I got the plastic on closeout. My time doesn't count. Your time counts. Not this time. Rosalind looks at her a long moment. You are your mother. Petra freezes. I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry. I meant it kindly. I know you did. Rosalind walks over to the greenhouse. She stands at the door. She looks in. She sees the tomato starts. She puts one hand on the doorframe. She says quietly, I haven't been able to look at seeds for 2 years. Petra doesn't answer. I couldn't, after the tornado. I opened the shoebox once last spring, and I closed it again, and I couldn't look at them for 6 months. I understand. But I opened it yesterday. I opened the shoebox, and I sorted them by planting date. And I have 3 trays of lettuce ready to go. Petra feels something rise in her chest. She swallows. She says, I'll come Sunday. I'll bring the trays. We'll get you started. Rosalind nods. She walks back to her car. Before she gets in, she turns around. Your grandfather would have liked to see this. That's what Ingrid says. Ingrid is right about most things. Then Rosalind drove home. The scorched lettuce happens on Wednesday. Petra has moved 12 heads of butter lettuce into the second greenhouse to test a warm season transition. Bexley has warned her about ventilation. Petra has installed Bexley's second flap. But she leaves the door closed all Wednesday morning when a warm front pushes through and the sun burns hard through the poly. She comes back at lunch. The inside temperature is 106 degrees. The lettuce is limp, curled, half of it scorched at the leaf edges. Petra stands in the doorway. She does not curse. She does not throw anything. She walks out. She sits in the grass beside the barn. She writes in the notebook. April 29th. Second frame reached 106 degrees at midday with door closed and one flap open. Butter lettuce scorched. Loss of 12 heads. Correction door open on warm front days. Cross ventilation, not just gable venting. She closes the notebook. She goes back to work. That night, Micah comes into the kitchen while she is soaking the salvageable heads in cold water. Petra, yeah, Bexley told me about the lettuce. Bexley talks too much. She said you didn't cry. I don't cry over lettuce. She said her grandfather would have. Would have what? Cried. Petra stopped soaking. She said her grandfather cries. Yeah, Bexley told you that. She told me a lot of stuff. Like what? Like her dad died last year, and her grandpa doesn't know how to be a dad. And she stays with him, but they don't talk. And she doesn't call him grandpa. She calls him Wilder. Petra sets the lettuce down. She stands at the sink. She looks out the window at the greenhouse in the dark. She says, Wilder Hensley. Yeah. She's Wilder's granddaughter. Yeah. Petra breathes in. She breathes out. She says, Micah. Yeah. Don't say anything to her about her grandpa. I know. Don't ask about her dad. I know. Just be her friend. I already am. Petra turns around. She looks at her brother, 10 years old, in pajamas, hair sticking up on one side, standing in the kitchen at 9 at night telling her he is already the friend of a 12-year-old girl who sleeps on Ingrid's porch and reads about greenhouse ventilation in the Belfonte library. She says, come here. He comes. She hugs him. He is small. He says into her shoulder, I miss Mom. I know. I miss Dad. I know. He pulls back. He says, are you going to be okay? I'm going to be okay. You promise. I promise. He nods. He walks up to bed. She stands in the kitchen a long time after he leaves. She does not sleep well that night. The next Monday, the county code inspector arrives, not Barrett Doyle, a younger man with a clipboard and a lanyard. He introduces himself as Kellen from the planning office. He walks the site. He measures the setback from the property line. He checks the base plates on both greenhouses. He looks up at the plastic. He looks at the wiring Petra ran from the barn to power the small circulating fan. He writes on the clipboard, Ma'am. Yes. The wiring. What about it? Who ran the wiring? I did. You have an electrical license. No. You need one for anything permanent. It's temporary. You have a temporary permit. No. He writes. He looks up at the ridge line of the greenhouse. The plastic? Yes. You have engineering drawings. I have my grandfather's notebook. He does not laugh, but something in his eyes does. He says that is not engineering documentation. It is engineering documentation. Ma'am, with respect, handwritten notes are not stamped drawings. They are drawings. They are not stamped. Petra does not answer. He writes. He hands her a citation. 7 items: wiring, structural inspection, setback confirmation, ventilation compliance for high heat load, water source permit for the drums, temporary occupancy permit, and one that reads use of unapproved reclaimed materials for permanent agricultural structure. He says compliance meeting May 3rd, Doyle building 3rd floor. He walks back to his car. Petra reads the citation. She reads the 7th line again. Use of unapproved reclaimed materials for permanent agricultural structure. That is what her grandfather's work is called on a government form. Unapproved reclaimed materials. She folds the citation. She puts it in the drawer with the letter. She calls Penn State that afternoon. She talks to a receptionist. She explains what she is doing. She asks if there is anyone in the extension office or the engineering department who might look at her design. The receptionist puts her on hold. Comes back. Dr. Halden Ashcroft has a moment tomorrow at 3. Dr. Ashcroft. Agricultural engineering. He does structural reviews for community projects. He does them without a fee if it is educational. Tomorrow at 3. Yes. Petra writes it in the notebook. She hangs up. Dr. Halden Ashcroft is a small man with round glasses and hands that look like they have never done manual labor in their life. He arrives at 3:02. He is driving a hybrid. He carries a leather folio and a folding rule. He looks at the first frame. He looks at the second. He walks around them for 20 minutes without saying anything. He measures the base plates. He measures the pitch of the arch. He climbs onto a stepladder Petra sets up for him and inspects the ridge. He comes down. He says, "May I see the design documentation?" "Yes." She hands him the notebook. He opens it. He turns the pages slowly. He stops. He reads. His eyes narrow. He turns another page. He looks at Petra. He says, "Miss Bjornstad." "Yes?" "This is Eric Bjornstad's notebook." Petra's mouth opens. "You knew him." "Not personally, but I read a paper he presented at the Northeast Extension Symposium in 1994 on four-corner joint reinforcement for reclaimed cold frame construction. I was a graduate student. I have thought about that paper for 31 years. Petra does not answer. She does not know what to say. Dr. Ashcroft turns another page. He looks at Astrid's handwriting. "And this?" "My mother." "Your mother wrote in his notebook?" "Yes." "Miss Bjornstad, do you know what you have?" "I have a notebook." "You have a design document. It is not stamped, but it is competent. It is more competent than most of the ones I stamp." Petra swallows. He hands the notebook back. He says, "I will review your design under my seal. I will not charge you. I will draft you a letter you can bring to the compliance meeting on May 3rd. I will state that your structural design is sound. I will not lie for you. I do not need to." "Why?" "Because I owe your grandfather a paper I never wrote back to him." He hands her his card. He gets in the hybrid. He drives home to State College. Petra stands in the yard with the card in her hand. She writes his name in the notebook. Dr. Halden Ashcroft. Owed grandfather a letter. Now owes me one. That night, Ingrid comes to the door with an envelope. Petra reads it at the kitchen table. It is the final page of the foundation document she pulled from the Clearfield First National Safety Deposit box the week before. She had put the papers in a folder in the drawer. She had not read to the end. Ingrid says, "Read the last page, I noticed something." Petra reads. Second Season Foundation. Registered June 14th, 1985. Non-profit charitable organization under Section 501c3. Purpose to receive donated materials for the education, construction, and distribution of cold climate greenhouse structures for small-scale food production. Trustees, Eric Bjornstad. Successor trustee, Astrid Bjornstad. Successor to successor, Petra Bjornstad, upon age of majority. At the bottom in her grandfather's hand a note. If Petra is not born or does not accept the trust, return all assets to the following. And then a list of 3 names. The first name is Ingrid Solberg. Petra looks up. Ingrid says, "I did not know that until I read it 3 days ago." "He named you." "He named me. So if I didn't accept, it would come to me. Why didn't you tell me?" "I only just read it, Petra. I had never seen the papers. He never showed me. He only told me his intentions. He did not tell me the specifics. You would have inherited a foundation. I would have, and I would have run it until I found the right person, and then I would have handed it over. So you would have found me anyway." Ingrid does not answer, because they both know the answer. Petra stares at the paper. She says, "Second Season Foundation was waiting for me." It was, since before I was born, since before you were born. He built a legal structure 41 years ago, on the chance that a girl he had not yet met might one day pick up a notebook. He did. That is insane. He was Norwegian. They are patient. Petra laughs. It surprises her. It comes out short and cracked. Ingrid smiles a little. Petra folds the paper. She puts it back in the folder. She says, "Ingrid." "Yes." "Where is the seed money?" $92,000 in a treasury note. It matures in September. Petra stares. Ingrid says, "I confirmed it Tuesday." Petra covers her face with her hands. She sits like that a long time. Ingrid does not speak. When Petra finally lowers her hand, she says, "I have to be very careful with that money." "You do." "It is not mine. It is the foundation's. It is my grandfather's dream." Ingrid nods slowly. Petra closes the notebook. She looks at Ingrid. She says, "The compliance meeting is May 3rd. "Yes. I have Dr. Ashcroft's letter." "Good. But I don't have permits." "You can apply for permits. Barrett Doyle sits on the board that approves permits." "Yes. He is going to say no." "He might. He will. Ingrid does not argue. The compliance meeting is at 7 in the evening on May 3rd, third floor of the Doyle building in the county seat. Petra wears her best jeans and the flannel shirt with the fewest stains. Ingrid drives her because Petra doesn't trust her hands on the wheel. Micah is with Rosalind. Bexley wanted to come. Ingrid said no. The meeting room is small, fluorescent lights, long table, 6 board members. Petra sits in a folding chair at the end of the table with her folder in her lap. Barrett Doyle sits in the middle of the table. He is in a dark suit, gray tie. He is polite. He smiles when Petra walks in. Miss Bjornstad, thank you for coming. Thank you for having me. We'll go through the citations one by one. Yes. They go through them. The wiring. Petra shows a receipt for a licensed electrician she hired on Ingrid's account 2 days ago to redo the wiring. The base plate setback. She shows the survey she paid for last week from a licensed county surveyor. The structural documentation. She hands the board Dr. Ashcroft's letter with his stamp. The board members read it. They look at each other. One of them says, Halden Ashcroft signed this. Yes. He doesn't sign things. He signed this one. He must know your grandfather. He read one of his papers. A pause. Barrett Doyle clears his throat. He says that is a strong letter. Yes. Item 7. Use of unapproved reclaimed materials for permanent agricultural structure. Yes. You are using rejected commercial greenhouse frames. Yes. Rejected because they were bent. Yes. Miss Bjornstad, that is not a permanent grade structure. Dr. Ashcroft says it is. Dr. Ashcroft is at Penn State. He does not sit on this board. But he is a professional engineer. Barrett Doyle folds his hands. He says, I have concerns about liability. If your structure fails on a customer's property, if someone is hurt. I have a daughter of my own. She is 14. If a child is inside one of these when it fails, that is what I think about. That is a fair concern. Then you understand. I understand your concern. I do not accept your conclusion. The board is quiet. Barrett Doyle looks at her a long moment. He says, may I ask you a question? Yes. Why are you doing this? Petra looks at him. She thinks about her grandfather. She thinks about her mother. She thinks about Rosalind's shoebox of seeds and Bexley's second flap, and Micah asking if they were going to lose the farm. She says because the growing season here is too short, and because people who cannot afford commercial kits should still be able to grow food. And because my grandfather started this project 41 years ago, and my mother continued it, and now it is my turn. Barrett Doyle does not blink. He says that is a beautiful answer. Thank you. But it is not an engineering answer. Dr. Ashcroft has given you the engineering answer. He nods. He says the board will deliberate. They send Petra into the hallway. She sits on a bench under a fluorescent light with Ingrid. Ingrid says you did well. I don't know. You did. He is going to vote no. He may. Ingrid. Yes. Why does he hate this so much? Ingrid is quiet. Then she says, Petra, there is something I have been waiting to tell you. I thought maybe you would find it in the papers. I did not want to bring it up before I had to. Bring what up? Barrett Doyle's father. His father. Weldon Doyle. What about him? Weldon Doyle tried to do what you are doing. In 1975, he built community greenhouses. He gave them away for free. He tried to help small farmers. He worked himself to death. He went bankrupt. He died in 1980 at 51 years old. Petra stares at her. Barrett was 10. Barrett was 10. When his father died doing what I am doing. Yes. Ingrid. Yes. He is not just trying to shut me down. No. He is trying to save me from his father. That is possible. Petra sits with this. She does not move. Ingrid says it does not mean he is right. No. It means he is human. The meeting room door opens. The clerk waves them back in. Barrett Doyle stands at the middle of the table. He says the board has voted 5-1 to grant provisional approval for a period of 90 days conditional on quarterly inspections and Dr. Ashcroft's continued oversight. Petra breathes out. Barrett Doyle says the one vote against was mine. She looks at him. He looks back at her. He says, I hope you succeed. She almost believes him. She thinks later that she should have believed him. Rosalind's greenhouse goes up the second week of May. Petra and Bexley and Ingrid together. Rosalind's granddaughter Amelia comes down from Pittsburgh to help. She is 15 and she has never held a wrench. Bexley teaches her. By the end of the week, the frame is standing. Rosalind plants 3 trays of lettuce and 6 pepper starts. She stands at the door of her new greenhouse. She puts one hand on the frame. She says, "This is the first thing that has felt right in 2 years." Petra does not answer. She has never known how to answer a sentence like that. She just nods. Word moves after that. Not fast, not viral. The slow word of small towns. A church group in Clearfield calls. They want a greenhouse for a community garden that feeds families through the winter. They can pay $800. Petra says yes. A school teacher in Cardhouse calls. She wants one for her 5th grade classroom. Her parent-teacher organization has raised $640. Petra says yes. A young couple in Du Bois calls. They just bought a small farm. They have 3 kids. They can pay whatever the parts cost. Petra says yes. Bexley starts a list on the back of the notebook. Waiting church group teacher, Du Bois family, 2 homesteaders in Clarion County. The waiting list grows. Petra hires nobody. She does the work herself with Bexley beside her. Ingrid comes twice a week. Dr. Ashcroft drives out once every other Sunday and reviews the current build. Duncan brings a trailer every Thursday, sorted by diameter now as promised. By the end of May, Petra has built 4 greenhouses off her property. She has 13 more on the waiting list. She sleeps 4 hours a night. She eats Ingrid's rye bread and Rosalind's coffee cake. She loses 6 pounds she cannot afford to lose. But the tomato harvest is coming in on July 15th, 3 weeks ahead of every other grower in the county. She takes a truckload to the farmer's market in State College. She sells out in an hour. She takes the next truckload the next Saturday. Sells out in 40 minutes. By the 3rd Saturday, a restaurant owner from Belfonte has driven out to her farm to arrange a standing weekly order. The coffee can under the sink has $1,400 in it now. The bank has been paid. Micah has new shoes. He has not asked once if they are going to lose the farm. The barn fire happens on a Tuesday night in mid-August. Petra wakes at 2:40 in the morning to the sound of the smoke alarm in the kitchen. She sits up. She smells it. She runs. The barn is fully involved by the time she gets to the porch. Flames pushing through the ridge vent. The east wall glowing orange from the inside. The old wooden siding blackening from the top down. She screams for Micah. He comes out of the house behind her. He grabs her hand. She calls the fire department from her cell phone. Then she calls Ingrid. Then she calls Duncan. The volunteer department arrives in 15 minutes. Too late. By 4 in the morning, the barn is gone. Everything inside it is gone. 6 months of spare tubing. The straightening jig she built by hand from scrap angle iron. 4 rolls of double poly. 16 bags of concrete. Her welder. Her generator. Her hand tools. A portion of the foundation seed money she had drawn on for equipment. Not all, but enough to her. Rosalind's greenhouse frames pre-cut and staged for 4 upcoming builds. All gone. At sunrise, the fire marshal walks the smoking ruin. He points at a black tangle in the east corner. He says, "Electrical." "You're sure?" "I'll be sure after I write the report. But that's electrical. Old wiring in the east corner. 50 years old. Never brought up to code. Not your fault. Not anyone's fault exactly. Just old." Petra stands at the edge of the ash. She does not cry. She does not curse. She stands there. Micah is beside her. He is holding her hand. He is holding it very tight. He says, "Petra." "Yeah, I saved the notebook." She looks down at him. "What?" "I heard the smoke alarm. I saw the fire from my window. I ran downstairs. I got the notebook off the kitchen table and I ran outside." She kneels down in the ash. She takes his face in both hands. She says, "You saved the notebook." "Yeah." "Where is it?" "On the porch. I put it there." She lets him go. She runs to the porch. The notebook is there. On the wicker chair, blue leather, corner stained dark. Eric's initials burned into the front. She picks it up. She holds it to her chest. She sits down on the porch step. She lets herself cry. For the first time since her mother died 4 years ago, she cries. Micah sits beside her. He does not know what to do. He just sits. She holds the notebook. She holds Micah. She cries. Ingrid arrives at 6, Rosalind at 6:15. Bexley walks up the driveway at 6:20 with her grandfather's truck idling in the road behind her. Wilder Hensley does not get out. He sits in the cab. He looks at the ruin of the barn. He looks at Petra on the porch. He does not know what to do either. He rolls up the window. He turns the truck around and goes. Bexley walks up to the porch. She sits down beside Petra without a word. She takes the notebook. She opens it to a page in the middle. She reads for a long time. Then she looks up. She says, Petra. Yeah. Which page did your mom write first? Petra looks at her. She has never turned to that page since the first time she opened the notebook. She takes the notebook. She opens it to the back. She turns to the first page in Astrid's hand. Bexley leans over her shoulder, reads. Then Bexley points at something. At the bottom of the second page, a note. A note Petra had not read before because she had stopped at the first page and could not go on. 3 lines in Astrid's hand. For Petra, if she ever asks. I was going to help. Elias Halston at the extension office. He wrote to your grandfather. He wanted to come out and see the frames. He said he had ideas. He was going to come in June. He never got the chance. But he asked. Petra reads the note, reads it again. She looks up. She says, Ingrid. Ingrid comes to the porch. Petra hands her the notebook, points at the note. Who is Elias Halston? Ingrid reads. She sits down slowly on the porch step. She says, Elias Halston was the county extension agent. He died in February of 2022. Cancer. He was 58. He wrote to my grandfather. He must have. He wanted to help. He never got to. No. My mother wrote this before she died in June. She did. So she knew. She knew someone was coming. She knew help was coming. She wrote it down for me, in case. She did. Petra closes the notebook. She holds it in her lap. She says quietly, 3 of them. 3 of them wanted this. 3 of them tried, and I am the one who gets to finish it. Ingrid does not answer. She puts her hand on Petra's shoulder. Micah leans against her other side. Bexley sits at her feet. Rosalind stands at the porch rail. The sun is up over the ridge now, full and gold. The smoke from the barn drifts sideways across the yard. Petra looks at all of them. She says, we are going to rebuild. Nobody speaks. She says, I don't know how yet, but we are going to rebuild. Bexley reaches up and pulls at Petra's sleeve. Petra looks down. Bexley says, Petra. Yeah, I want to help. I don't want lunch. I want to learn everything. Every piece. I want you to teach me like your grandfather taught your mother. Petra looks at her. She looks at Ingrid. Ingrid is smiling. Petra kneels in front of Bexley. She takes the notebook. She puts it in Bexley's hands. She says, then start reading. We are going to start over. Bexley holds the notebook. Petra says, bent isn't broken. It's just waiting to be something else. Bexley nods. Behind them, the last timbers of the barn collapse into the ash with a soft final sound. Ingrid puts an arm around Rosalind. Micah leans his head against Petra's back. At the end of the driveway, a silver crew cab pickup slows on the county road. Barrett Doyle looks at the smoking ruin. He looks at the family on the porch. He does not stop. He drives on, but he does not turn his eyes away until the truck rounds the bend. And somewhere 3 counties east in a glass-walled office on the 14th floor of a building with the Agristeel logo etched on the doors, a man named Griffin Thackeray is opening a folder marked Fairbanks Metal and Salvage Acquisition Target. He does not know yet that his target has a granddaughter. He does not know yet that the granddaughter has a notebook. He does not know yet that the notebook has a foundation behind it. He will find out in October. The rebuild starts on a Wednesday. Not with fanfare, not with a call to the local paper, not with a grant application or a fundraiser, with a shovel. Petra is on her knees in the ash at 7 in the morning, digging out the concrete pad where the barn used to stand. Bexley is beside her with a wheelbarrow. Micah is filling buckets with rubble too heavy for either of the girls to lift. Rosalind arrives at 7:30 with coffee. Ingrid at 7:40 with rye toast. By 9, three more cars have pulled up the gravel drive. Petra does not know these people. An older woman in a church cardigan. A young man with paint-stained hands. A couple in matching Carhartts. They walk up to Petra. The older woman says, "Miss Bjornstad?" "Yes. I saw the fire on the news last night." "There wasn't news. There was on the Punxsutawney station. A short piece. I saw it and I called some people. We came to help." Petra looks at her. She does not know what to say. The young man says, "I do drywall, but I can lift things." The wife of the Carhart couple says, "I can cook. I brought a slow cooker." The husband says, "I brought my truck." Petra stands up. She wipes her hands on her jeans. She says, "Thank you." That is all she can say. She says it again. "Thank you." By 10 in the morning, there are 14 people in her yard. By noon, there are 22. By 3, there are 31. Nobody has told them to come. They come. Rosalind's daughter drives up from Pittsburgh in a station wagon full of tools. The DuBois couple who bought the greenhouse in June bring their 3 kids and a pallet of 2x4s from a job their father-in-law overrun on. The school teacher from Cart House arrives with her husband and 2 other teachers from her building. They bring a dozen sandwiches and a case of bottled water. Duncan Fairbanks pulls up at 4:40 with a flatbed loaded with new steel he purchased at cost from a competitor scrapyard because his own supply had been staged for delivery on Thursday morning. He unloads it himself. He does not ask for payment. He waves off Ingrid when she tries to write him a check. He says, "I owe him this. He'd have done the same for my granddad." He climbs back in the truck and rolls out. By dark, the concrete pad is clear. Petra sits on the porch step with Bexley beside her. They eat a sandwich together in silence. Micah comes out with the notebook. He hands it to her. She opens it. Writes, August 13th. Barn cleared. 31 people came. Nobody asked me to ask them. She pauses. She writes one more line. I did not know we had this many friends. She closes the notebook. The rebuild continues through September. The insurance settlement comes in the second week. $14,300. Not enough to replace what was lost. Enough to buy back the essential tools. Petra spends the money carefully. She uses the tomato income and the greenhouse income and the $5,200 in donations that came in the mail from strangers who saw the Punxsutawney news story or heard about her from someone they knew. She rebuilds the barn smaller than the original. She rebuilds it out of hemlock milled at a small sawmill 2 counties away that gave her a discount because the owner's mother had been a widow who lost a barn in 1979 to the same cause. Electrical. The new wiring is done by a master electrician from State College who came at Ingrid's request. He is paid at full scale, Petra insists. By the end of September, the new barn stands. It is 30% smaller than the original. It is 30% stronger. She stencils above the door in white paint the words, Second Season Foundation. The letters are slightly crooked. She does not repaint them. October arrives on a Thursday. Petra is standing in the yard directing Bexley on the assembly of Rosalind's second greenhouse. Yes, Rosalind ordered a second one. She wants to grow winter salad for the food pantry in Clearfield. She has paid for this one at full price. She insisted. A black sedan comes up the driveway. Not a pickup, not a Volvo, a sedan, rented. Ohio plates, a man steps out. 45, gray suit, no overcoat, silver watch, shine shoes that have never seen a farm. He walks up to Petra. He extends a hand. Miss Bjornstad. Yes. Griffin Thackeray, Agri-Steel Corporation. I called last week and left a message. I don't think you got it. I didn't. May I have 20 minutes? She looks at him. She looks at Bexley. Bexley is watching from the greenhouse door with her arms crossed. Petra says 20 minutes. They sit on the porch. Petra does not offer coffee. Griffin does not seem to expect it. He opens a leather folio. He says, I represent Agri-Steel Corporation. We are a scrap steel consolidation firm. We buy regional scrap yards. We centralize distribution. We supply the industrial melters more efficiently than the small yards can. Yes. We have made an offer to Fairbanks Metal and Salvage. Petra does not move. Duncan Fairbanks. Yes. For how much? That is between us and Duncan. Understood. But I wanted to speak with you as a courtesy, because I understand you are Duncan's largest customer. Or perhaps I should say his most unusual one. Yes. If Duncan accepts our offer, his current operations will change. AgriSteel does not sell to end users. We move steel directly to the melter. Petra's hands are still. She says, you are going to cut off my supply. That is one way to phrase it. How would you phrase it? Griffin smiles a little, not unkindly. I would say the transaction removes an inefficiency. My grandfather's work is not an inefficiency. I did not say your work was inefficient. You said the transaction removes one. I said the transaction removes an inefficiency in Duncan's distribution. Same thing. He does not argue. He turns a page in the folio. Miss Bjornstad, I am not here to shut you down. I am here to offer you a compensating arrangement. AgriSteel would like to purchase your foundation. Petra blinks. Purchase my foundation. Yes. You cannot purchase a non-profit. You are correct. But we can offer to sponsor it. We can offer to fund it at a rate that would allow you to buy new steel at wholesale from any national supplier. You would not need reclaimed material. You would be scaled. You would build 25, 50, 100 greenhouses a year with clean new steel in a proper facility. He looks at her. He is not unkind. He is not smug. He is a man who believes he is offering her a lifeline. I says $200,000 a year in operating support for 5 years in exchange for the right to co-brand the foundation as an AgriSteel community initiative. Petra sits with this. She does not answer for a long time. Then she says, Mr. Thackeray. Yes. May I ask you a question? Please. Where are you from? I was born in Nebraska. Not corporate offices. You. Where are you from? He looks at her. He hesitates. He says, Griner Valley, Kansas. My father was a wheat farmer. Was. He is still alive. He is 82. He does not farm anymore. When did he stop? 1988. The drought. Yes. How much did he lose? Everything. Petra nods. She says, how old were you? 14. 14. Yes. She says, Mr. Thackeray, did your father have neighbors who helped him? Some. Some helped. A few. What happened to the ones who didn't? They lost their farms too, because they didn't have neighbors. Or the neighbors couldn't help. She looks at him. She says quietly, do you know why my grandfather registered this foundation? I don't. I was Norwegian. He immigrated in 1958. He came to Clearfield County because a widow named Mrs. Hoffmeyer, who had lost her husband in the war, offered him a room and a job in her repair shop. She did not know him. She did not know if she could trust him. She did it because she remembered what it felt like to have no one. She pauses. She says he never forgot her. He registered this foundation 41 years ago because he believed that when a community loses the small operators, when everything gets consolidated up into one place, that widow with the empty room has nowhere to send a stranger, and the stranger has nowhere to go. Griffin does not answer. Petra says, you are offering me a very generous deal, and I will not take it. He nods slowly. He says, I understand. She says, but I want to make you an offer instead. He looks up. She stands. She walks inside. She comes back with a folder. She sets the folder on the porch table. She opens it. She says, Second Season Foundation is a 501c3. Any donor who contributes scrap steel to the foundation may claim the fair market value of that steel as a charitable deduction at the time of contribution. Fair market value is defined by the IRS as the price the item would sell for on the open market on the date of contribution. Griffin's eyes narrow. He is listening now. She says bent greenhouse steel has a fair market value of scrap-grade steel plus reclamation value. According to a valuation my accountant completed last month, that comes to roughly 47% of the value of straight new steel. She turns a page. She says the foundation currently receives about 18 tons of steel per year from Fairbanks Metal and Salvage at no cost. If Duncan sold that steel to your consolidation company at the wholesale rate you are offering, he would receive approximately $9,000 per year for it. If he donated it to the foundation instead, he could claim approximately $27,000 as a charitable deduction on his taxes. She turns another page. She says the net financial benefit to Duncan of donating the steel to the foundation, given his current income bracket, is approximately $14,000 per year, which is 55% more than your offer. Griffin does not move. He is looking at the numbers on the page. He is checking them. He is a smart man. He is checking them correctly. He looks up. He says, "You did the math. I did the math. Your grandfather did the math. He set up the structure. I did the current math. When did you do it?" "July. I had a feeling something like this might come." Griffin sits back. He closes the folio. He is quiet a long time. He says, "Your grandfather thought about this for a long time. He thought about it for 41 years. Miss Bjornstad." "Yes." "I have been in this business for 18 years. "Yes." "I have never lost an acquisition to a nonprofit tax structure. There is a first time for everything." He laughs. It is a real laugh, short and surprised. He stands. He picks up his folio. He looks at the yard. He looks at Bexley in the doorway of the half-built greenhouse. He looks at Micah walking across the lawn with a bucket of water. He looks at the barn with the words "Second Season Foundation" painted crooked above the door. He says, "Miss Bjornstad, I am going to withdraw the offer for Fairbanks Metal and Salvage. Thank you. Not because you outmaneuvered me, although you did." "Then why?" He looks at her. He says, because I am a 14-year-old boy from Griner Valley who watched my father lose everything. And because you just described my father's neighbors. And because I have spent 18 years trying to prevent what happened to him. And I understand now that I have been trying to prevent it the wrong way." Petra does not answer. He extends his hand. She takes it. He says, "I hope your grandfather's foundation lasts 100 years. So do I." He walks to the sedan. He gets in. He looks back at her. He raises one finger from the steering wheel. Not a wave. A slower gesture. The same gesture Barrett Doyle made from his truck 4 months ago. The taillights disappear over the ridge. Petra sits on the porch step with the folder in her lap. Bexley walks over. She sits down beside her. She says, "You beat him." "I didn't beat him." "You did." "He beat himself. I just showed him the mirror." Bexley considers this. She says, "That's a good way to win." Petra does not answer. She writes in the notebook. October 7th. Griffin Thackeray declined acquisition. Foundation tax structure superior to consolidation offer. He is a 14-year-old boy from Griner Valley. His father was a wheat farmer. He walked away. She closes the notebook. The next morning she goes into the foundation files. She has been going through them slowly for 3 months, reading everything her grandfather saved, everything her mother added. There is a box she has not opened. It sits at the bottom of the file cabinet. Cardboard, rubber banded, marked in her grandfather's hand. Correspondence 1975 to 1980. She has been avoiding it. She does not know why. She opens it now. Letters, dozens, yellowed at the edges, neatly stacked. She reads them one at a time. Most are technical exchanges with other extension agents. Some are personal notes from Norwegian friends back in Bergen. 2 are from Ellison Fairbanks. 1 is from a man named Weldon Doyle. Weldon Doyle, Barrett's father. Petra sits down at the kitchen table with the letter. Her hands are steady. She opens the envelope. The paper is thin, typed on an old machine. The letter is 2 pages. Dated March 11th, 1979. Dear Mr. Bjornstad, Ellison Fairbanks tells me you designed a joint reinforcement method for reclaimed cold frame construction that has proved reliable at his shop. I am writing to ask if I might come and see it. I am attempting something that people are telling me I should not attempt. I am trying to build community greenhouses at cost for small farmers in Clearfield and Jefferson counties. My banker tells me the numbers do not work. My wife tells me the same. But when I look at my neighbors at what the last 2 winters cost them, at the daughter of the Kellermans up the road, who has to leave school and take a job in the elevator to help her mother pay for kerosene, I cannot believe the numbers matter more than that girl staying in school. I know I am too old to start this. I am 50. I have a son who is 9, and he needs a father who is not exhausted every night. But I do not know who else is going to do this if I do not. Would you meet with me? I could come to your shop on a Saturday. I do not have money to pay you for your time. I have 20 years of construction experience, and I will trade you labor for any hour you give me. Please forgive the presumption of this letter. I have read your paper twice. I do not have anyone else to ask. Sincerely, Weldon Doyle. Petra reads the letter, then reads it again, then reads it a third time. There is a note clipped to the back in her grandfather's hand. Met Weldon 3 Saturdays in April 1979. Explained joints, thermal mass ventilation. He was a good man in a hurry, told him he was moving too fast. He did not want to hear it. He was tired. He was afraid he was running out of time. Started 3 greenhouses that summer. Overextended. Bank foreclosed on his shop in December. He died in April 1980. His son was 10. I have thought about the boy every year. I hope he is well. Petra puts the letter down. She sits at the kitchen table for a long time. She thinks about a 9-year-old boy watching his father write a letter on a typewriter to a man he had never met. She thinks about a 10-year-old boy standing at a graveside. She thinks about a 56-year-old man in a wool overcoat who sits on a zoning board and votes no on structures made of reclaimed steel. She thinks about how long grief can wait inside a person before it starts asking to be seen. She stands up. She puts the letter in a manila envelope. She writes on the outside in ink, "For Barrett Doyle, from my grandfather and my mother and me." She puts the envelope on the passenger seat of her pickup. She drives to the Doyle building the next morning. It is Wednesday. She has an appointment for the quarterly inspection review. Barrett requires under the terms of the provisional permit. She arrives 10 minutes early. She waits in the lobby. At Nini 15, Barrett Doyle comes down the stairs. He is in a dark suit again. He carries a folder. He nods to her. "Miss Bjornstad." "Mr. Doyle." "Third floor." They ride the elevator in silence. She holds the envelope against her chest. They walk into his office. He gestures at the chair. She sits. He opens his folder. He begins the inspection review. He is professional. He is polite. He is the same man he was in May. Cordial, distant, certain. Petra listens. She answers his questions. The review takes 11 minutes. At the end of the review, he closes his folder. He says, "Everything is in order. Thank you. Continue as you have been." "I will." There is a pause. He is about to stand up. She says, "Mr. Doyle." "Yes. I have something for you." She sets the envelope on his desk. He looks at it. He does not touch it. He says, "What is it?" "It is a letter your father wrote to my grandfather in March of 1979. His face does not move, but his hand does. His right hand resting flat on the folder curls slightly, not into a fist, just a curl. He says, "Miss Bjornstad." "Yes." "Where did you get this?" "From my grandfather's files. I found it yesterday morning." "Have you read it?" "Yes." "I would like you to leave now." "Please read it, Mr. Doyle." "I would like you to leave." "Please read it." He looks up at her. His eyes are steady, but there is something behind them that has not been steady for 46 years. He says, "I know what my father wrote." "You do." "I know what he tried to do." "You do." "I have spent my life doing what I do because he did what he did." "I know." "You do not know." "I know some." "You cannot know." Petra sits very still. She says, "Mr. Doyle, my mother died 4 years ago. My father died 2 years ago. I do not know what it is to lose a father at 10, but I know what it is to be 22 years old and to open a notebook and find that people I loved have been waiting for me to be ready." He does not answer. She says, "My grandfather met with your father 3 Saturdays in April 1979. He tried to slow him down. Your father would not slow down. He was too tired. He was too afraid. My grandfather thought about him every year until he died. He wrote it in the note attached to your father's letter." Barrett Doyle looks at the envelope. He does not touch it. Petra stands. She says, "You do not have to read it now. You do not have to read it at all. But it is yours. It has been yours since 1979. My grandfather kept it for you. He just did not know how to give it to you." She walks to the door. At the door she turns. She says, "My grandfather thought he had failed your father, Mr. Doyle. He thought if he had known how to speak to him differently, your father might have lived." He looks up. His face has not changed, but his eyes have. She says, "I do not think he failed. I think your father made his own choices, and I think you have made yours, and I think that is enough." She leaves. She rides the elevator down. She walks out to the parking lot. She sits in her pickup for 10 minutes before she turns the key. When she gets home, she writes in the notebook. October 9th, delivered father's letter to Barrett Doyle. Did not stay for reaction. It is not my grief. It is his. She closes the notebook. She goes back to work. The late frost comes on the night of April 22nd. 6 months later, she has built 43 greenhouses. Bexley now leads assembly on kits without Petra's supervision. Ivy Doyle Barrett's 15-year-old daughter has been coming out on Saturdays since December learning ventilation from Bexley. Ivy is quiet, careful, attentive. She reminds Petra of her mother. Petra has not spoken to Barrett Doyle since October. He has not called. She has not called. Ivy comes and goes on her own. The frost that April is the kind farmers talk about for a generation. 21 degrees at 3 in the morning. Every unprotected garden in Clearfield County dies. Every one. Petra wakes at 4:30, not from an alarm, from knowing. She goes to the porch. The stars are sharp. The grass crunches under her boots. Her breath is white. She walks the yard. Her greenhouses, all 8 standing, inside, alive, every last tomato start. She calls Rosalind at 5. Yours alive. All of them. All of them, Petra. All of them. She calls the school teacher in Carthouse. Alive. She calls the Du Bois family. Alive. She calls the church group in Clearfield. Alive. Every greenhouse she has built. Every one. 43 across 4 counties. All holding. By 9 in the morning, the phone will not stop ringing. By noon, 3 television stations have called. By 1 in the afternoon, a farmer she has never met calls from Warren County. He wants to know if she will come teach a workshop. By 3 in the afternoon, Wilder Hensley pulls up her driveway in his old brown truck. He gets out. He does not have his hat on. He walks to the porch. Petra sees him coming from the kitchen window. She wipes her hands on her jeans. She goes out to meet him. He stands at the bottom of the porch steps. Eyes holding his hat now, in both hands. He says, "Petra, Wilder, I lost my tomato starts. I heard. I lost my pepper starts. I heard. I lost my early cabbage. I heard." He is quiet a moment. He says, "I need 3. 3. 3 of your greenhouses." "Okay. I will pay you full price." "I know you will. I will pay you Saturday." "Okay." He nods. He looks down at his hat. He says, "There is one more thing." "Yes." "Bexley." "Yes." She has been staying with Ingrid since October. She comes here every day. She does not come home. "I know." "Petra." "Yes." "My son died 2 years ago last April. He was 41. His wife left when Bexley was 3. Bexley has been with me since then, and I do not know how to raise a girl. I did not know how to raise a son. I do not know what to do." Petra does not speak. He looks up. His eyes are wet. He does not try to hide them. He says, "She talks about you all the time. She says you are teaching her. She says you are honest with her. She says you do not treat her like a child." "She is not a child." "No." "Wilder." "Yes." "What are you asking me?" "I am asking if you will keep teaching her. I am asking if you will take her as an apprentice. I am asking if you will let her stay at my house at night, but come here in the day and be who she is." Petra looks at him. She looks at her hands. She thinks about a 12-year-old girl walking up her driveway with hands full of scratches, saying she would work for lunch. She thinks about her grandfather. She thinks about her mother. She thinks about a 9-year-old boy who was told he could not do what his father tried to do. She says, "Wilder, Bexley is welcome here every day. She always has been. She always will be. But I want you to do something for me. Anything. I want you to come with her 1 day a week. Come, sit in the workshop, watch her work, Say nothing. Just be there. He is quiet. I do not know how to do that. You do not have to know how. You just have to be there. He nods slowly. He puts his hat back on. He says, Petra. Yes. Your father would have been proud of you. She does not answer. There is nothing to answer. He walks back to his truck. He climbs in and heads home. She stands on the porch a long time. That evening at 7, a knock at the kitchen door. She opens it. Barrett Doyle. He is not in a suit. He is in jeans, a canvas jacket. He is holding a covered dish. Beside him is Ivy. Ivy is holding a loaf of bread. Petra does not speak. Barrett does not speak. Ivy says, we brought supper. Petra opens the door. They come in. They sit at the kitchen table. Petra does not ask questions. Micah comes downstairs. Ivy waves at him. He waves back. Petra sets 4 places. They eat. The conversation stays small. Ivy's school, the weather, the frost. Micah asks Barrett if he is going to bring his grill down next weekend for a cookout. Petra has been planning for the whole neighborhood. Barrett looks at Petra. Petra looks at him. He says, I would like to, if you'll have me. She says, I'll have you. He nods. After supper, Ivy helps Micah with the dishes. Petra and Barrett stand on the porch. He is quiet. Then he says, I read the letter in November. Okay. I read it every day for a month. Okay. I have not been able to say thank you until now. You do not have to say thank you. Yes, I do. He looks out at the yard, at the row of greenhouses in the dark, at the small light in the barn that says Second Season Foundation. He says, my father wrote in that letter that he did not know who else would do it if he did not. Yes, he did not have to worry. She looks at him. He says, you are doing it. She does not answer, because there is nothing to answer. He looks down. He clears his throat. He says, Ivy asked me if she could stay Saturdays past November this year. Overnight if you would have her. She wants to learn winter ventilation. She can stay overnight anytime. Thank you. Barrett. Yes. Your father did not fail. He does not speak. He nods once. He walks back inside to help his daughter with the dishes. That night, after everyone has left, Petra sits at the kitchen table with the notebook. She opens it to a fresh page. She writes, April 23rd. 43 greenhouses held through 21-degree frost. Every one. Wilder Hensley came for 3 kits. Barrett and Ivy came for supper. Micah asked if Barrett would bring his grill. She pauses. She writes, I do not know what my grandfather saw when he registered this foundation in 1985. I do not know what my mother saw when she wrote in the back of the notebook in 2022. I only know what I see now. I see people. I see a girl who reads about ventilation in Belafonte. I see a widow with a shoebox full of seeds. I see a school teacher and a couple with 3 kids in a church group that feeds families through the winter. I see the man in a wool overcoat who lost his father when he was 10. I see his daughter learning to angle a flap. I see my brother growing up. I see a season that is longer than I thought it could be. Bent isn't broken, it's just waiting to be something else. She closes the notebook. She hangs it on a nail she has driven into the wall of the workshop. Beside her grandfather's brass thermometer with the Norwegian inscription she now understands. Vinter kommer alltid. Men vi bygger la. Winter always comes. But we build shelter. The last scene of Petra Bjornstad's story is a small one. It is a Saturday morning in June, 1 year and 2 months after Duncan Fairbanks first drove up her gravel driveway. The yard behind the barn is full. 12 greenhouses standing in rows. A workshop with the door propped open. Ingrid on the porch of the main house with Rosalind drinking coffee. Duncan pulling up in a flatbed loaded with sorted steel. His son beside him now learning the trade. Bexley in the workshop, 16 years old, now teaching a small group of 4 young farmers from 3 counties how to weld a Fairbanks Bjornstad joint. Ivy Doyle at a table with 3 teenagers from Carthouse, showing them how to number and label kit pieces. Micah 11 now running between the greenhouses with a clipboard taking orders from the small crowd of Saturday visitors who have come to walk the property and place kit deposits for fall delivery. Wilder Hensley sits in a folding chair beside the workshop. He does not speak. He watches his granddaughter work. He has been coming every Saturday for a year. He wears his hat. He does not take it off. Barrett Doyle stands beside him drinking coffee from a paper cup. He and Wilder have become the kind of friends who do not need to say much. At the far end of the yard, Petra stands with a young woman she has never met before. The young woman is 19. She has driven up from West Virginia with her mother. Her father recently died. She has inherited 15 acres of land nobody thinks is worth farming. She has heard about second season. She has come to ask if it is possible. Petra looks at her. She sees herself. She sees her mother. She sees her grandmother she never met. She sees her grandfather at 28 stepping off a boat with 2 suitcases. She sees Weldon Doyle at 50 writing a letter on a typewriter. She sees every person who has ever stood in a field and looked at what everyone else said was worthless and thought maybe, just maybe. She reaches into her pocket. She pulls out a small notebook. New blue leather. She has been carrying it for a month, waiting to know who to give it to. She hands it to the young woman. She says, "Start writing everything down, the frost dates, the soil temperatures, every failure, every question, every idea." The young woman takes the notebook. She says, "I don't know if I can do this." Petra says, "Neither did I." She looks at the young woman a long moment. She says, "Bent isn't broken. It's just waiting to be something else." The young woman nods. Her mother standing behind her puts a hand on her shoulder. Petra walks back toward the workshop. Behind her, the young woman opens the notebook to the first page. She takes a pen from her pocket. She writes, June 21st, 2027. I was told my land was worthless. I do not believe that anymore. She looks up at the row of greenhouses standing in the sun. She looks at her mother. She smiles. Some seasons take longer to arrive than others, but if you build the shelter, they always come.